All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show across from Levi's Stadium as we talk a little bit about everything that happened down here on a Sunday. We had a chance to talk to the Niners offensive and defensive coaches, the assistant coaches, and didn't get a chance to talk to all of them, but we talked to a number of them. And we'll talk, and there was a number of really interesting like anecdotes and things that we learned today. So I'll just go through it. But of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. I'm also repping today my Northgate High School Bronco football shirt. My kid's getting ready to play little JV ball coming up this fall for Northgate. So go Northgate. All right, little shout out from Northgate. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we saw, or some of the things that we talked to the coaches about. A lot of interesting stuff today. A lot of really interesting stuff. So let's get through it. One, we started off with Chris Foerster, and Chris Foerster was talking about Trent Williams, how Trent looks good. I asked him about that third, the swing tackle, and he's like, hey, we may not have a swing tackle situation. They've been playing Austin Pleasance at right tackle. They've been playing Spencer Burford at left tackle, and they may keep him that way. They may just, if they need a left tackle, they'll go to Burford. If they need a right tackle, they'll go to Pleasance. He said, we may not have a legit swing tackle this year. Chris, how do you feel about the third tackle position after a couple weeks of camp and the candidates?
I don't look at it right now. I think it'd be really hard to go in. I look at it's kind of like we did a couple years ago. I think it's going to be like it could be Spencer at left and Austin at right. Right now is how it looks. I don't know that necessarily to be a swing guy at this moment. And could we keep four guys? I think you have to look at it anyway. Maybe one of them's a I don't know how it all shakes down eventually, but. Right now, that's kind of how we're working them because neither guy is really. We haven't been swinging. We've just been trying. We've done a little bit the days that Trent hasn't practiced, and we, a little bit guys are down here and there. But I think it more of a left and right. We did that. I can't remember, it was Jalen and Willis. It was not Matt. What was his name? I would call him Willis. Matt, Big Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor. That we did that a couple years ago. Pryor was backing up at right, and then Jalen backed up at left because Jalen never got a lot of right tackle work. It's kind of that way again because it just so happens when Trent doesn't practice that. So then that guy has to take all the left tackle reps when Trent's not going, and that happens to be Spencer right now. So it's really hard for him to get the right tackle work.
Andre Dillard is the third guy in the mix. He might be that swing tackle who can play either side, but he's hurt right now. So Chris seemed to think that they may not have like one guy who's like their third tackle on either side. They may actually, if Trent goes down, they may go to Burford, but if McKivitz goes down, they'll go to Pleasance. Then we talked a little bit about Conor Colby, and I asked Chris, what did you think of Colby as a pass blocker? And I thought he was just going to be like, oh my gosh, because Colby is just getting abused in one-on-ones. And he's like, hey, that's really where I like him. He's good as a pass blocker. He struggles as a run blocker. I'm just like, whoa, that's the opposite of the book on Conor Colby. So we asked him to expand on it a little bit. And sure enough, Chris says that Conor Colby has looked really good in pass blocking situations in the team setting. He's like, not as much in the one-on-ones. And of course, that's what I was referring to because he's getting worked over in the one-on-ones. But Chris likes the way he can pass block, and he compared him to Dom Pooney. And he's like Pooney from last year. He's like, this guy could play because he could pass block. So I'm glad we had the conversation because it really did advance this story quite a bit. Conor Colby, despite the fact that he's looking like he's getting beat pretty consistently in the one-on-one pass rush drills, according to Chris, looks really good as a pass blocker, and they feel really good about his potential because in the team session, he's done a nice job as a pass blocker. He said that's his strength right now. Pass blocking is Conor Colby's strength at this point. Any thoughts on Colby and how he's doing as a pass protector?
Yeah, that's his strength right now. That really is. He's doing a good job. He's had some troubles in one-on-ones, but not so much in teamwork. When the one-on-one deal is a little different, his technique is different, and he's working on it. But when you put him in the group setting, he's doing a really good job. It's one of his strong suits right now. Getting him to move quick in the run game is not quite. Even though they did it at Iowa, it's not up to par yet. That's where I would say his biggest gap is, and that's what's encouraging because if you can pass block, that's a huge piece, and he can do that. And one-on-ones haven't shown it. That's been the and that happens. It's like that sometimes.
Is that a mild surprise? Just talking to some people coming out of Iowa, it was kind of the opposite. They thought that he might be ready as a run blocker, but would need a little more seasoning in the past.
Absolutely a surprise. I mean, we looked at him too. He didn't get to see a lot of it. And, there's a lot of things go into it, but yeah, no, it's definitely a surprise when he walked in and said, "This guy's gonna be able to pass block." I mean, right away, you saw it. I saw it in teamwork, saw it in drill work. He's got things to improve and work on, but that was what happened with Dom last year. You walk in, Dom pass blocked, and you're like, "This guy's gonna be fine because he can hold up in pass protection."
He said he's not up to par right now in the run game, and that's where he was really good at Iowa. So, that's going to be interesting to see how Colby plays in the preseason and who makes the team. But he likes Colby as a pass protector, thinks he's really advanced. Even though he was billed as a good run blocker, he thinks that there's work to be done as a run blocker, and he's like, that's kind of the weakness right now. And then, somebody asked him afterwards, "Hey, is that a surprise?" He's like, "It's absolutely a surprise." So that was interesting. That was the first little interesting nugget of the day, that Conor Colby's a better pass protector than he is a run blocker, despite the fact he was billed as a great run blocker coming out of Iowa. According to Chris, he's more ready to contribute right now as a pass protector. Chris also said he loves Ben Birch. And when he was asked to kind of expand on that, he's like, "Hey, man, the guy's got a good attitude. He loves to work. He loves to play football. He loves to lift weights." He's like, he just has a good attitude. So that was our conversation with Chris Foerster. Then I moved over to Brian Fleury, the tight end coach. And I asked him, "How's camp going?" He said, "Man, camp's going well. It's an exciting time." I mentioned to him how Purdy to Kittle seems like it's a really good, they're in real good rhythm as a tandem. And he said, yeah, Kittle's in full rhythm right now. He feels really good. He feels much better than he felt last year at this time. He said Kittle feels really ready to go and fired up for the year. Purdy to Kittle right now looks really, really good. They seem like they got a good rhythm going.
It does. It's George is really happy with how he feels. I'm sure if you asked him, he would say the same thing. Just last year, coming off the injuries and the things he had to have during the offseason, he wasn't really up to full speed when he got here. And this year's the complete opposite. He feels very good and ready to go, and it's good to see those two connecting early on.
I asked him about Tongus and Willis and Pline, because those three guys, along with Dwelly, are competing for the third tight end spot. And I asked him, could you compare their skill sets? And he's like, well, he didn't really get into the specifics, but he did say they all have different skill sets. But he also did mention that third tight end spot very well special teams will have a lot to do with who's the third tight end. So even though Dwelly looks slower than Pline, he doesn't look as good as Willis. He is not nearly as good a receiver as Tongus. Because Dwelly is the better special teamer and the veteran special teamer, they may go with Dwelly as the third tight end and wind up cutting Pline and Willis and Tongus. Farrell's going to be number 2. Kittle's going to be number 1. Who's going to be that third tight end? So based on what I've seen, I'd say it's either going to be Willis or Pline, but he made it seem like it's going to be Dwelly, because of the special teams component to the whole thing. That is interesting. I mentioned how Pline, rented an apartment in Nashville next to Kittle so he could train with Kittle and Purdy, and Fleury said he thought that was a great idea and that was a really smart play by Pline to do that. Fleury said he's really looking forward to Thursday against Denver, practicing against the Broncos. He said it's a different level of physicality when you bring in a different team. When you bring in it's not your teammates. There's like a code that you don't blow up your teammates. There's no code like that in joint practices. So if, they'll be harder hitting, there'll be more physicality. There'll be, that's why Thursday is going to be so juicy, and I'm looking forward to it as well. And Brian said he was as well. And then we finished up with one question about Mac Jones. I said, what do you think of Mac Jones? I'm impressed by Mac Jones. I've been kind of impressed by Mac Jones. I just kind of thought that he would struggle. It's a complicated offense. It's a new offense. A lot of young receivers. He's not necessarily mobile, but he really looks very comfortable. He looks really good. You've been coaching this league a long time. What do you see with Jones so far?
He's got a little bit of swagger to him, some quiet confidence. He's fun to be around. He has had the benefit of playing in more than one offense during his short time in the league, and so I think he's used to adapting and kind of translating stuff in his brain and just, finding a relationship with guys on the field and being able to get them the ball where they need to. Like he's adapted really well, and he's definitely fun to work with.
And he's like, man, Mac Jones has got a little bit of swagger to him on the practice field. Then we had a chance to talk to Mick Lombardi, the quarterback coach, who took over for Brian Griese. And I walked up and he was talking about Mac Jones, and he said, man, Mac is a really smart kid. He works really hard. He said he's the same guy every day. He's an even keel guy. He relates well to the receivers. He said he was asked about, is he the funniest guy in the room? And Mick Lombardi's like, I think I'm the funniest guy in the room. That was kind of funny. It's interesting. He did say it's his first year coaching Brock, and that Brock wants to be coached hard. I mentioned to him that he's got a different skill set of wide receivers than a year ago, and he acknowledged that is the case. He mentioned how Carter Bradley has a great personality, and he mentioned that Carter Bradley had a relationship with Brock Purdy and with Mac Jones, and so that's another reason why he's a good fit in this room. He was asked about Tanner Mordecai, and he said Mordecai's working on his feet and on his mechanics. Talked a little bit about Curtis Rourke, and Curtis Rourke is taking part in all the meetings, and Mick said he enjoys Curtis, and that Curtis at this point can't do anything physically, so he's just all taking mental reps right now. And then, he was asked a little bit, I asked him about tempo. As far as tempo, the Niners never really practice. It doesn't seem like any kind of a hurry up, any kind of, anything where they seem like they're rushing. And he said every NFL team has some form of a hurry up. And it really just depends on the game, and didn't want to get too much into it, but, they really don't practice any kind of, at least that I can tell. They don't practice any kind of drill where you're like, they're speeding things up. Somebody pointed out that Purdy and Pearsall are in really good sync right now. And he Mick said, hey, they developed that rapport last year. I mentioned how Brock wants to be coached hard, and he said, man, at the end of the day, these guys just want to be told the truth. He said Brock loves to be coached. He's got a dry sense of humor, but he just wants to be told the truth so he can improve his game. He did watch Carter Bradley's workout. He was asked about Brock Purdy, another question about Brock Purdy. He said, man, Brock's the same guy every day. He's like, his focus every day is just on practice and what we can get done that day. I asked him about Thursday, and he's like, man, it's going to be great. He's excited to go up against Vance Joseph's scheme, against fresh talent, a new scheme. And Mick said, hey, the whole thing just kind of adds adrenaline to training camp. Mick said that the Niners coaches will work with the Denver coaches to plan the practice out for Thursday. I asked him if, since he's taking over for Brian Griese, and they were both on the staff last year, if Griese and him ever sat down at the end of the year so he could kind of get the lay of the land from how Griese saw the quarterback room. And he said, no. He said, no, the two never sat down. And I said, would it have helped if you guys had sat down? And he's like, it may have helped, but he didn't have the opportunity. So that's kind of odd. That's kind of odd that I wonder if there was not necessarily good vibes or good, maybe there's some bad blood there. Why would two coaches and the same offensive staff, one's moving on, the other's being promoted into his spot? Why would they talk? A lot of times there's rivalries and there's things that go on that never really reach the media level. That could be one of them, because he didn't. To me, it seems odd that Mick Lombardi, the new quarterback coach, would not talk to Brian Griese, last year's quarterback coach, about Griese's thoughts on the players, or maybe they worked so close together he knew his thoughts on the players. Maybe that's the deal. A couple other things on Mick Lombardi. He said, he said basically that Brock wants to know what he's done wrong on every play so he can correct it. He admitted to us that he likes to make fun of Curtis Rourke because Rourke's the rookie in the room. And then I asked him about Gage and Robinson, and it seems like they already have a real good, flow with Purdy and Jones. And he said it all began in phase one of the OTAs, and that, through phase one, to then phase 2, and now to get to training camp. He's like, at this point, these guys have worked together. They've done the field reps. They've done the mental reps, and it's good to see. He's got a couple veteran receivers there that he's really in lockstep with. Then I had a chance to talk to Leonard Hankerson, the wide receiver coach, briefly, and he said Jordan Watkins has been doing a great job. He says he can break tackles. He's strong. He says he demonstrated that in college. I asked him about the young kid, Isaiah Nayer, and he said, man, he's a great kid. He's a great asset to the team. He said he's raw, but he can really run. We need to build him up and coach him up. He said he works hard. I'm excited to coach him. So,
Leonard, is there a quick thought, forgive me if you've been asked this already, but about Nayer, what do you think of the kid? He just seems like he's got an unbelievable traits.
No,
he's coaching.
Yeah, he does. Nayer, he's a great guy. Great asset to the room. With 6'4" frame. Strong. Tall, who can run. That's something we hadn't had really in the past. And then he's raw. And the main thing with him is we just got to keep working and building him towards, exactly how we want him to play. So he's been awesome to have. The kid works extremely hard. And I'm excited to coach him. And I'm excited to see where he can get to.
Thanks, Coach.
No problem.
Leonard Hankerson seems like a good guy. I only got a chance to talk to him for a little bit. Had a chance to talk then with the defensive coaches, and the first guy that we talked to was Gus Bradley. There was no Chris Kasarik. Normally I would get a lot from Kasarik, but Kasarik wasn't there today. But we talked to Gus Bradley, and I asked him about Dallas Flowers. He had Dallas Flowers at Indy last year, and he brought Dallas Flowers to San Francisco. And he said, yeah, Flowers is tall, he's long, he can run, he's got a good football IQ, he's getting better every day. And you can see that Gus is a big fan of Dallas Flowers. He was asked about the joint practices, and he's like, yeah, it's great to go up against teams, players that have different skill sets, different players, different scheme. Just adds a lot of juice and kind of cuts down the monotony of camp. All right, then we had a chance to talk to Gus Bradley, and I asked Bradley about Dallas Flowers. And he had Dallas Flowers in Indy, and he brought him to the Niners, and he said, man, yeah, he's tall, he's long, he can run, he's got a good football IQ, he's getting better. He really likes Flowers and thinks that Flowers has a lot of potential.
So I wanted to ask you about Dallas Flowers because you had him in Indy last year, and he's kind of showing nicely on the practice field. He's NFL size, NFL speed. He just looks like he's got an NFL corner's body. Tell us a little bit about Flowers, what you like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, one thing when you look at him, right, he's tall, long, can run. Good football IQ. So, and I've just seen, it feels like, from where he's at, they've done a great job here. Just, where he's continuing to get better. You're starting to see him play things more aggressively. You're starting to, as he gets a feel for what it was asked of him in the defense, I think you're starting to see some of his skill set come out.
Then we talked a little bit about the joint practices, and he's like, yeah, the advantage in joint practices is you get different guys, different skill sets, players with different skills, different strengths, different schemes. So it's, and it cuts up the monotony of camp. We talked about how the Niners signed his son Carter as a quarterback, and he said he's really excited to be here and that Carter knows Brock and Mac Jones, that he's trained with them in the past. And, then he kind of said something that was kind of made me sad because he's like, yeah, he basically Gus said that, he's only seen his son play live his entire college career 2 times. And I thought, man, that is so sad. I mean, that's sad. I mean, considering your son plays football, you're a football coach. I love watching my son play football, and that would kill me to not be able to watch him play. And as much as Gus loves football, and I'm sure he sees the games on tape, but as far as only watching him live twice, just shows, man, there's a price that these coaches pay. There's a price. We talked about Darrell Lutter, and he said the same as Flowers. He's a tall, long, athletic corner who's getting better consistently.
Gus, he finished up at South Alabama, and you guys got another guy in that secondary from there in Lutter. What do you think? I mean, Lutter needs you right now. He needs to break through, and he needs a guy like you to help him break through. What do you think of him?
I mean, there's another one. We just talked about Dallas Flowers, right? Like, there's some of the same qualities when you look at him: tall, long, and he's getting a great opportunity this year too. In training camp. So, I think all those guys. The main thing is that they just consistently get better and they keep challenging themselves. And that's why, being a part of team meetings like we have here, where everybody gets challenged. And I think everybody, I know on the defensive side, feels that. Hey, we need tighter coverage, we need tighter here, better technique here. And he's following that with just everybody else. But I see him, you can see from where he was at to where he's now, it's like he's playing with a little bit more confidence.
We talked about Jacob Robinson, and he's like, yeah, he's making some plays, man. He's very competitive. He's a smart kid. He really likes Robinson. I mentioned to him how Jair Brown has been sitting in some of the quarterback meetings to learn more about just kind of the macro view of playing safety. And, he's like, hey, it's advanced football. It's like football 5.0. To go try to get that kind of the macro view of the whole thing and get a better understanding. And he went on to say that he really likes Jair. He says he's really sharp. He's got a high IQ. He called him a high IQ player. I asked him, what does he want to see from his guys in the joint practice with Denver? And he's like, he just wants to see, there's a bunch of guys who are learning a new system. He's like, I just want to see if they can play fast. I want the guys to play fast. I don't want them to be thinking. I want them to play, get out there and play fast. He really likes Nick Martin. I mean, Gus Bradley said, man, he's playing fast despite being a new scheme. In fact, he used Nick as the example of like, what he's looking for. It's like Nick is learning a ton and it's all new scheme, but he's playing so fast. Part of the reason I think Nick's playing that fast is he's just so damn smart. I mean, Nick Martin's a really smart player. And there's no question, Nick is a really good football player. I asked him about Pete Carroll, and he said Pete Carroll was a great mentor to him. He said that Pete used to talk about Bud Grant and George Seifert and Ray Rhodes and all these guys when he was with Gus in Seattle. And then I asked him about Brock Purdy, and he said, what stands out to me is that Brock's just so poised. He's like, he said, he runs it's a timing offense. He runs it. He's very poised. He's in total command of the offense. And he says the players have a lot of faith in him. So I thought that was interesting. If you want to know about offensive guys, ask defensive guys. Defensive guys know offensive guys. And so it was interesting to hear Gus Bradley talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. And then we had a chance to talk to Johnny Holland. I love talking to Johnny. Johnny was one of my favorite players to watch in college at Texas A&M. And he started talking about Dee Winters. And he called Dee Winters our best one-on-one coverage linebacker. He says he's a different linebacker than Fred Warner. But he said that, he said Fred covers the tight end better, but he says Dee covers the running backs better. He's like, Dee was a wide receiver in high school. He's a really good athlete. And he called him his best overall coverage linebacker, and he covers running backs out of the backfield at a really, really high level. He said that all the linebackers battle to see who can cover Christian McCaffrey in camp because they love going up against McCaffrey. I asked him about Jalen Graham, and he said that he's made a big leap forward, that he really knows the system. Johnny's excited about this group. In fact, Johnny says, I got 9 NFL caliber linebackers. And I don't think there's any doubt about it. This is a really good group. Johnny said he's excited to see Trey Greenlaw on Thursday, but not excited to practice against Greenlaw. He's like, man, I hope Greenlaw doesn't beat up on our guys. But he loves Greenlaw, and justifiably so. We talked Nick Martin, and he said, man, the guy has great effort, and it's not just great effort to fly around. He has great effort to finish plays. He said the hustle and the speed and the effort. He said he's out there. He'll punch the ball out just like Fred. You can see that Johnny is really enamored with Nick Martin and thinks really highly of him.
Can't wait till you get here.
Johnny, when you watch practice, it's hard to sometimes gauge the linebackers because you're just tagging off on guys.
Yeah.
And so I started watching on the binoculars a little bit from where we were at, and I'm seeing Nick Martin on the binoculars show up at the ball, tagging off on guys. I'm not always noticing him, but then when I'm getting up close, you can kind of see it.
Well,
what do you see with Nick so far?
If you ask Nick to do something, he's going to do it. And that's one thing I saw on his college tape. He played with great effort. And I always tell guys it's different than playing with effort and effort to finish. Nick has some ball productions, punching balls out. He'll run from a pass rush all the way downfield and get in the frame, and that shows up. And that's to me how you become a really, really good player. You make plays that people don't expect you to make, and that's what Nick can do. Like, he can be on one side of the field and be on the other side of the field in a matter of seconds. And he has tremendous speed and effort that shows up.
Oh, he's special.
I asked him about Chaz Surratt. He's like, Surratt's athletic and smart, and he can play middle linebacker or he can play strong side linebacker. I asked him about Tatum Bethune, and he said he looks quicker. He's a really hard worker. He said he's really excited to go up against Denver on Thursday because it's different guys, different system, and he said it's always fun. But I thought the most interesting part of the conversation with Johnny Holland was what he said about Stone Blanton. Stone Blanton is an undrafted free agent linebacker who doesn't look like much. But if you turn on the film of Stone Blanton in college, all the guy did was make tackles. And if you watch him on the practice field, he looks great. He looks absolutely great. Now he's running with the 2s and the 3s, but he looks great. And Johnny's like, man, the ball production. He called him a very smart player. He said he's going to be a player.
How about young Stone Blanton? What do you think of him?
Stone Blanton is showing up.
He is, isn't he?
Stone, he doesn't get many reps at practice, but every rep he gets, he make the most out of them. And Stone, he showed it in college. He had a lot of ball production, punch out. He reminded me of a little young Fred Warner, but he's a very smart player. And you can tell him one time he can get it, but he's going to be a player that, he's going to have a chance.
He seemed like in the team periods of some of these practice sessions, very talkative.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's a good sign for a young linebacker, right? I mean, he's vocal.
For a rookie to come in here and play Mike linebacker with all the checks to calls and setting up the defensive front, that we ask him a lot. Stone doesn't blink, man. He does a great job with it. And and he's in a room that, we have some good linebackers as examples, and if you tell him one time, he can do it. Very excited about it. He's a physical player.
I mentioned to Johnny how you could see how Stone is communicating on the practice field, that he's really, a lot of communication on the field. And he's like, he's like, this guy's a rookie, and he's wearing the green dot, and he's playing middle linebacker, and he's got to handle all of the things that we throw at Fred. He's got to handle all of that. And Johnny's like, and this kid doesn't blink. So he said, I'm very excited about him. He said he had ball production in college. I mentioned to him, I said, Johnny, he had 18 tackles in a game last year. He's like, I know. I said, Johnny, he had 14 tackles in another game. He's like, I know. He's like, this kid had ball production in college, and he's had a lot of ball production in camp. And then Johnny went on to say that, it's not just that Blanton has a lot of ball production. He says he has as much ball production in camp as any other linebacker that he has, and he's done it in a lot less reps because Stone is running with the 2s and 3s, and you get less reps. So he's like, he's got amazing ball production, and he's doing it with less reps. It just kind of solidifies my opinion that, my prediction, which is that Stone Blanton is going to have 10 plus tackles in at least one of these 3 preseason games. So a lot of interesting stuff there. I mean, really a lot of interesting stuff. A lot of really good anecdotes. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I definitely enjoy the days that we can come down and talk to the coaches. We'll post some of the quotes on YouTube and on social media. You'll see some of them. But you got a pretty good rundown there, breakdown of everything that I gleaned from an hour with the Niners offensive and defensive coaches, and I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was a great hour. I thought there were some incredible anecdotes there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles and Call of Daddy Arcades for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krueger Show on YouTube.